The alarm wasn't even necessary anymore. At 68, my body had learned to wake itself at 5 in the morning, no matter what day it was. But today felt different. Today was Emma's birthday party, and somehow, like always, all the planning had fallen into my lap. I sat up slowly, feeling the familiar ache in my lower back. The house was completely silent except for the old grandfather clock in the hallway ticking away the minutes. Through my bedroom window, I could see the first hints of dawn painting the sky a soft purple. Most people my age would still be sleeping, but here I was already mentally going through my checklist for the day. The funny thing was, this party wasn't even supposed to be my responsibility. My son Michael and his wife Jennifer had come up with the idea 3 weeks ago. "Mom, we want to throw Emma a really special 8th birthday party," Michael had said over the phone. "You know how much she loves your backyard. And your house has so much more space than ours." I should have seen it coming. Within days, Jennifer was sending me text after text with party ideas. Fairy-themed decorations, homemade pizza, a chocolate cake shaped like a butterfly, fresh lemonade, and of course goodie bags for all the kids. The list kept growing, but somehow the actual work of making it happen kept falling to me. "You're just so good at this stuff," Jennifer had said when I mentioned feeling overwhelmed. And Emma specifically asked if Grandma Rose could make her special chocolate chip cookies. You know how much she loves those. So here I was padding to the kitchen in my slippers, ready to start what would probably be a 12-hour day of cooking, decorating, and hosting. I tied my apron around my waist and turned on the oven. The chocolate cake had to be perfect, and the pizza dough needed time to rise. By 8 o'clock, I had 3 different cookie batches cooling on racks, the cake layers were done, and I was starting on the buttercream frosting. That's when my phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer. "Can you also make that pasta salad Emma likes? And maybe some fruit kebabs? The kids love those colorful snacks." I stared at the message for a moment. "No, please, no, would you mind? Just another item added to my already overwhelming to-do list." But I texted back, "Of course. No problem." Michael and Jennifer arrived around 10:30 with Emma and their 4-year-old son Tommy. "Mom, you're amazing," Michael said, giving me a quick hug as he surveyed all the food I'd prepared. "This looks incredible." Jennifer walked straight to the dining table where I'd set up the decorations. "Oh, you used the pink tablecloth," she said, frowning slightly. "I was really hoping for the lavender one. Pink doesn't really go with the fairy theme we discussed." "The lavender one has a stain from last Christmas," I explained. "This pink one is new." She said, already moving on to inspect something else. "And did you remember to get the sparkling apple cider? Emma doesn't like regular juice anymore." I felt my smile falter slightly. I'd bought 3 different types of juice, but sparkling apple cider hadn't been on any of the lists she'd sent me. "I have regular apple juice and some lemonade." "It's fine," she said with a little wave of her hand. "She'll just have to deal with it." Emma spotted the gift I'd wrapped for her almost immediately. It was sitting on the kitchen counter in a beautiful silver box with a purple ribbon. Inside was a sweater I'd spent weeks knitting for her. It was soft yellow wool with tiny embroidered flowers around the collar. I'd even sewn her initials on the sleeve in delicate pink thread. "Is that for me, Grandma Rose?" Emma asked, reaching for it. "After lunch, sweetheart," I said. "Let's wait for all your friends to get here first." The party officially started at noon, but by 11:45, kids were already running around my backyard, their parents dropping them off with quick waves before driving away. I found myself playing hostess, referee, and entertainment coordinator all at once. "Mrs. Rose, can I have another cookie?" asked one little girl. "Tommy spilled juice on the patio," called another. "Where's the bathroom?" yelled a boy who was clearly in urgent need. Meanwhile, Jennifer was on her phone in the corner of the yard, having what sounded like an important work call. Michael was trying to set up some kind of speaker system for music, but he kept getting frustrated with the Bluetooth connection. "Mom, can you help me with this?" he called. I was in the middle of wiping up Tommy's juice spill and trying to prevent 2 kids from fighting over the same toy. "Just give me a second, honey." "Never mind," he said, throwing up his hands. "I'll figure it out later." Lunch was a blur of serving pizza, refilling drinks, and making sure every child had enough food. I barely had time to eat a single slice myself. By the time we got to the cake, I was exhausted, But seeing Emma's face light up when I brought out her butterfly cake made it all feel worth it. Time for presents, Jennifer announced, finally off her phone. Emma opened gift after gift, squealing with delight at each new toy, book and game. Finally, she reached for my silver box. I felt a flutter of nervousness in my stomach. I'd put so much love into that sweater, spending hours choosing the perfect pattern and yarn. Emma tore off the ribbon and opened the box. She lifted out the yellow sweater and held it up, her face completely blank. "It's a sweater," she said flatly. "Grandma Rose made it especially for you," Michael said, trying to sound enthusiastic. "Look at those beautiful flowers." Emma shrugged and set it aside quickly, reaching for the next present. "Thanks, Grandma," she said without really looking at me. But I heard Jennifer whisper to another mom nearby, "She's not going to wear that. Kids don't really like handmade clothes anymore. They want brand names and trendy stuff." The other mom nodded knowingly. "My mother-in-law does the same thing. I keep telling her to just buy gift cards, but she insists on making these old-fashioned things." My heart sank. I picked up the sweater from where Emma had left it and folded it carefully, placing it back in the box. Months of work dismissed in seconds. "Time for the group photo," Michael announced, pulling out his phone. All the kids gathered around Emma, while the parents stood behind them. I was still cleaning up wrapping paper and trying to organize the chaos of new toys when Jennifer called out, "Rose, we're taking the picture now." "Just a second," I called back, my arms full of trash and discarded ribbons. "We can't wait forever," Jennifer said. "The kids are getting restless." I heard the camera click several times while I was still bent over, picking up pieces of torn gift wrap. When I finally looked up, everyone was already moving away from the photo spot. The moment had passed. "We got some great shots," Michael said, scrolling through his phone. "Emma looks so happy." I nodded and smiled, but inside I felt hollow. I'd spent the entire day working to make this party perfect, and when it came time to capture the memory, I wasn't even in it. The cleanup was enormous. Paper plates covered every surface, juice had been spilled in at least 3 different places, and someone had ground a cookie into my living room carpet. I found myself scrubbing and wiping while the last few kids finished playing in the backyard. "Mom, this was absolutely perfect," Michael said, giving me another quick hug as families started to leave. "Emma had the best time." "Thank you so much, Rose," Jennifer added, already gathering her purse and keys. "You really are a lifesaver." And then they were gone. All of them. The house fell completely silent except for the sound of my own breathing. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes and the remnants of a party I'd spent days planning and preparing for. The yellow sweater box sat on my counter, still unopened since Emma had set it aside. I stared at it for a long moment, thinking about all the evenings I'd spent working on those tiny stitches, imagining how happy Emma would be to wear something made just for her. I walked to the sink and started washing dishes, my hands moving automatically while my mind wandered. When had I become just the person who did all the work? When had my efforts stopped mattering? I'd given up my own plans, my own time, my own energy to make everyone else's life easier, and the only acknowledgement I got was being left out of the family photo. As I scrubbed a particularly stubborn cake pan, I caught sight of my reflection in the kitchen window. I looked tired. More than tired, I looked invisible, like someone who existed only to serve others, never to be seen or appreciated for who I actually was. The cut happened so fast I didn't even realize it at first. I was washing a glass that had a small crack in it, and suddenly there was blood mixing with the soapy water. I pulled my hand back, watching red drops fall into the white foam. "Ouch," I said out loud to the empty kitchen, wrapping my finger in a dish towel. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody rushed to help, 'cause nobody was there. They'd all gone home to their own lives, leaving me alone with the cleanup and a cut finger that would heal quietly, just like everything else I dealt with on my own. I sat down at my kitchen table, still holding the towel around my finger, and looked around at the chaos. This was my life. This was what I'd built for myself over 40 years of marriage and motherhood. I was the person who made everything work, who solved every problem, who never said no to any request. And I was completely, utterly alone. The next morning brought another familiar sound, a car door slamming in my driveway before 8 o'clock. I didn't need to look out the window to know it was my daughter Sarah. She had a particular way of closing car doors that announced her arrival like a warning bell. I opened the front door before she could knock. Sarah stood there with her work bag slung over one shoulder, and her 6-year-old son Jake bouncing impatiently beside her. Her face had that pinched, stressed expression that meant she needed something from me immediately. "Mom, I'm so sorry to do this last minute," she began, not even waiting to be invited inside. "But my Chicago presentation got moved up to today, and Jake's babysitter just texted that she's sick. Can you watch him? I promise it's just until tonight." Jake was already pushing past me into the house, heading straight for my kitchen cabinets where I kept the crackers. "I thought your Chicago trip was next week," I said, stepping aside to let Sarah in. "Plans changed," she said quickly, checking her phone. "You know how work is. Everything's always urgent and last minute." I watched Jake climb onto my kitchen counter, reaching for the cookie jar I'd specifically moved to a high shelf after yesterday's party. "Jake, please get down from there." "But I want cookies for breakfast," he whined. "He can have whatever," Sarah called from the living room, where she was already gathering some toys from a bag. "I packed some snacks, but honestly he's not picky." The truth was Jake was extremely picky. He only ate certain brands of crackers, refused most vegetables, and had strong opinions about everything from the temperature of his milk to the way his sandwiches were cut. But Sarah seemed to forget these details whenever she needed me to babysit. "What time will you be back?" I asked. "My flight lands at 6, so probably around 8 or 9 tonight. Dennis will pick me up from the airport." She paused by the door, car keys already in her hand. "Oh, and Jake has that dentist appointment tomorrow at 10. Can you take him?" I completely forgot when I scheduled this trip. I opened my mouth to remind her that I'd been planning to visit my friend Helen tomorrow morning, but Sarah was already halfway to her car. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." And then she was gone, leaving me with Jake, who had successfully retrieved the cookie jar, and was now eating chocolate chips directly from the bag. "Jake, how about we have some real breakfast first?" I suggested. "This is real breakfast," he said with his mouth full. "Mom lets me eat whatever I want." I doubted that was entirely true, but I didn't have the energy to argue. Yesterday's party had left me more drained than usual, and the cut on my finger was still tender under its bandage. While Jake continued his cookie breakfast, I tried to salvage what was left of my morning routine. I'd been planning to finally organize my music sheets, something I'd been putting off for months. But now my dining table was covered with Jake's coloring books and action figures. "Grandma Rose, why do you have a piano?" Jake asked, wandering into the living room where my old upright piano sat against the wall. "I used to play," I said, following him. "A long time ago. Can you play something now?" I looked at the piano bench, covered with a stack of unfolded laundry from yesterday's party cleanup. "Maybe later, sweetie. After I finish cleaning up." "You're always cleaning," Jake observed, settling onto my couch with his toy cars. "Every time I come here, you're cleaning something." His words hit me unexpectedly. From the mouths of babes, I thought. He was right. I was always cleaning, always organizing, always taking care of something or someone else's mess. Around noon, my neighbor Helen stopped by with a plate of apple turnovers from the farmer's market. She found me scrubbing crayon marks off my coffee table, while Jake played video games on my tablet. "That party yesterday looked like quite the production," Helen said, settling into my kitchen chair. "I saw all the cars in your driveway." "Emma's birthday," I explained, accepting the turnovers gratefully. 8 years old. "And today you're babysitting again?" Helen glanced toward the living room where Jake's voice could be heard arguing with some online game. "Sarah had a work emergency," I said automatically. Helen studied my face for a moment. "Rose, when's the last time you had a day that was actually yours? No parties to plan, no kids to watch, no emergencies to solve." I paused with a dishcloth in my hand. I honestly couldn't remember. "I don't mind helping," I said. "They're family." "Of course they are. But you're family too. And you matter just as much as the rest of them." That afternoon after Helen left, I found myself really looking around my house. Every room showed evidence of my constant service to others. The kitchen counter was perpetually clear because I cleaned it obsessively before anyone visited. The guest room stayed ready at all times in case someone needed a place to stay. My own bedroom was the only space that felt like mine, and even that contained a basket of mending I did for Michael's family. Jake fell asleep on my couch around 3, finally worn out from his sugar crash. I covered him with a throw blanket and sat down at my piano for the first time in months. My fingers found the keys hesitantly, picking out a simple melody I remembered from years ago. The sound filled my quiet house differently than the usual noises of cooking and cleaning and childcare. This sound was mine. It came from something inside me that had nothing to do with being useful to anyone else. I played for maybe 10 minutes before Jake stirred and asked for a snack. But those 10 minutes felt like coming up for air after being underwater for a very long time. When Sarah finally returned that evening, she looked exhausted but successful. "The presentation went great," she said, gathering Jake's scattered toys. "Thanks for watching him, Mom. I know it was last minute. What about his dentist appointment tomorrow?" I asked. Sarah paused, toy car in hand. "Could you still take him? I've got back-to-back meetings all morning, and rescheduling would be such a hassle." I thought about my plans with Helen, our monthly coffee date that I've been looking forward to all week. "I suppose I could manage it." "You're amazing," Sarah said, giving me a quick hug. "I don't know what I'd do without you." After they left, I sat in my quiet kitchen and really thought about Helen's question. When was the last time I'd had a day that was mine? The answer was unsettling. I couldn't remember having one in years. That night, I called Helen to cancel our coffee date. "I have to take Jake to the dentist," I explained. "Again?" Helen's voice carried a note of concern. "Rose, you know it's okay to say no sometimes, right?" "It's just easier if I do it," I said. "Sarah's work is very demanding." "And what about your work?" "What work?" "I'm retired." "The work of being Rose. The work of having your own life, your own interests, your own time." After I hung up, Helen's words echoed in my mind. The work of being Rose. I'd been so focused on being Michael's mother and Sarah's mother and Emma and Jake's grandmother that I'd forgotten there was supposed to be a person underneath all those roles. I walked to my piano and lifted the lid, running my fingers along the keys without pressing them. I used to give lessons years ago. Before marriage, before children, before I became the person everyone called when they needed something done. I'd been good at it too. Patient with frustrated students, creative with lesson plans, proud when they finally mastered a difficult piece. What had happened to that person? The next morning at Jake's dentist appointment, I sat in the waiting room reading a magazine while Jake got his teeth cleaned. An article caught my attention. "It's never too late to rediscover yourself." The headline seemed to be speaking directly to me. The article was about women who'd found new purposes later in life. A 60-year-old who'd gone back to school to become a therapist. A 75-year-old who'd started a successful bakery. A grandmother who'd learned to paint and now sold her artwork at local galleries. "All set," Jake announced, bouncing out of the treatment room with a new toothbrush and a sticker. On the drive home, he chattered about the dentist visit, but my mind was still on that article. It's never too late. The words felt both hopeful and terrifying. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my laptop and searched for local music groups. After scrolling through several options, I found something that made my heart skip. Silver Harmonies, a choir for active seniors. New members welcome. No audition required. Their next meeting was Friday evening at the community center. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then impulsively clicked the Contact Us button. "I'm interested in joining your choir," I typed. "I used to play piano and I miss making music." I hit send before I could change my mind. The response came back within hours. "We'd love to have you. Friday at 7. Bring a water bottle and a willingness to have fun." Friday evening, I stood outside the community center feeling more nervous than I had in years. Through the windows, I could see a group of people my age arranging chairs in a circle. They were laughing and chatting like old friends. I almost turned around and went home. What was I doing here? I had laundry to fold and meal prep for the weekend. Sarah might need me to watch Jake again. Michael and Jennifer might call with another party to plan. But then I remembered that magazine article. It's never too late. I walked through the door. "You must be Rose." A woman with silver hair and a warm smile approached me immediately. "I'm Patricia, the group leader. We're so glad you decided to join us." The next hour was magical. We sang old songs I remembered from my youth, tried harmonies that made me laugh when we got them wrong, and shared stories during breaks. These people saw me as Rose, not as someone's mother or grandmother or problem solver, just as Rose who liked to sing. "Do you play piano?" asked a man named Frank when I mentioned my musical background. "I used to teach," I said. "But that was a long time ago." "We could really use an accompanist," Patricia said. "Would you consider it? Just when you're comfortable, no pressure." Driving home that night, I felt something I'd almost forgotten existed. Excitement. Anticipation for next Friday, for the music we'd make together. For the person I was becoming when I wasn't busy being everything to everyone else. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Can you watch Jake tomorrow afternoon?" Something came up at work. I looked at the message for a long moment. Then, for the first time in years, I typed back, "I'm sorry, but I have plans tomorrow. Maybe Dennis could help." I hit send before I could lose my nerve. Her response came quickly. "Plans? What kind of plans?" "Piano practice," I typed back. "I've joined a choir." There was a long pause before her next message. "Oh, okay. I guess I'll figure something else out." I set my phone aside and walked to my piano. Tomorrow I would practice. Tomorrow I would be Rose, not just Grandma Rose or Mom. Just Rose, making music for the pure joy of it. The response to my text came the next morning, while I was having coffee and practicing scales on my piano. Sarah's name flashed on my phone screen, and I could almost feel the tension through the device before I even read her message. "Mom, I really need your help today. Dennis had to work unexpectedly, and I can't find anyone else to watch Jake. This client meeting could change everything for my career." I stared at the message, my fingers still resting on the piano keys. The old me would have immediately typed back, of course, bring him over. The old me would have canceled my practice time, rearranged my day, and spent the afternoon entertaining a restless 6-year-old while Sarah advanced her career. But something had shifted inside me during that choir practice. For 1 hour, I had been valued for something other than my availability. I had been appreciated for my voice, my musical knowledge, my presence as a person rather than just a service provider. I typed back carefully, "I understand this is important to you, but I've committed to piano practice today. Perhaps you could bring Jake to the office with you? Or ask one of his friends' parents." The response was immediate. "Are you serious right now? Just piano practice. This is my actual job." I felt my face flush. Just piano practice. As if the thing that had made me feel alive for the first time in years was somehow less important than everyone else's obligations. "My music is important to me too," I replied. My phone stayed silent for the rest of the morning. That afternoon Patricia called me. "Rose, I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly. We were all so impressed with your musical background yesterday, and I wanted to ask you something." "Of course," I said, settling into my favorite chair. "Our regular pianist is moving to Florida next month to be closer to her grandchildren. We're wondering if you might consider taking over for her. It would mean playing for our weekly practices and our monthly performances at the senior center." My heart started beating faster. I haven't accompanied a group in years. I'm not sure I'm good enough. "Oh honey," Patricia laughed. "None of us are professionals. We're just people who love music and want to share it with others. Would you at least think about it?" After I hung up, I sat at my piano and pulled out some of my old sheet music. My fingers moved through familiar pieces, muscle memory returning slowly but surely. The notes filled my living room with something I'd been missing without even realizing it. Purpose that belonged entirely to me. That evening Michael called. His voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. "Mom, Sarah told me you wouldn't help her today. She said you chose piano practice over watching Jake." "That's right," I said simply. "But Mom, she really needed your help. She's trying to advance her career. And you know how hard it is for working mothers." I understood his concern, but I also heard something else in his voice, the assumption that my time was infinitely flexible, endlessly available for everyone else's needs. "I was a working mother too," I said quietly. "And I never had anyone to call when I needed help." "That's different. You were married to Dad. Sarah's doing this mostly on her own. Sarah is married to Dennis. You know what I mean. Dennis travels for work, and his schedule is less flexible than yours. There it was, the core assumption that had governed my life for decades. My schedule was always considered the most flexible because my time was valued the least. Michael, I love you and I love your sister and I love my grandchildren. But I also love music, and I haven't made time for it in 30 years. I'm not going to give it up again. The silence stretched between us. Finally, he said, I just don't understand why you're being so selfish all of a sudden. Selfish. The word hit me like a physical blow. Taking one afternoon a week for something that brought me joy was selfish. But expecting me to be available every time someone else had a conflict wasn't. Maybe I am being selfish, I said. Maybe I should have learned how to be selfish a long time ago. 2 weeks later, I played my first performance with Silver Harmonies at Sunset Manor, the assisted living facility downtown. My hands shook slightly as I positioned them over the keys, but once the music started, everything else faded away. We performed What a Wonderful World, Moon River, and Bridge Over Troubled Water. The residents sang along to the familiar melodies, some with tears in their eyes. After we finished, an elderly man in a wheelchair rolled up to the piano. Young lady, he said, his voice shaky but warm. That was the most beautiful music I've heard in months. Thank you for sharing your gift with us. I drove home with tears on my cheeks and music still ringing in my ears. When was the last time someone had thanked me for sharing a gift, rather than just completing a task? The conflicts with my children continued. Sarah called less frequently, and when she did, there was a coolness in her voice that hurt more than I wanted to admit. Michael maintained polite contact but seemed perpetually puzzled by my transformation. I just don't understand what's gotten into you, Jennifer said when they came for dinner the following Sunday. You used to be so helpful, so accommodating. Now it's like you've become a completely different person. Maybe I have, I said, serving the pot roast I'd made, because I wanted to cook, not because anyone had demanded it. Maybe I'm becoming the person I was always supposed to be. Emma looked up from her plate. Grandma Rose, will you teach me to play piano? The request surprised everyone, including me. Emma had shown no interest in music before, preferring video games and dance videos on her tablet. Would you really like to learn? I asked. I heard you playing when we came in today. It sounded pretty. I glanced at Jennifer, who was frowning slightly. She's already taking dance lessons and art class. I'm not sure we have time for piano too. I could teach her here, I offered. On Sunday afternoons, maybe? Please, Mom. Emma asked Jennifer. I really want to learn. And so began a new tradition. Every Sunday after family dinner, Emma and I would sit at the piano together. She was a natural student, patient, curious, determined to get each note right. Within a month, she could play simple melodies with both hands. You're a wonderful teacher, she told me one afternoon. Mrs. Peterson at school is nice, but she's always rushing. You actually listen when I make mistakes. Those words meant more to me than any compliment I'd ever received about my cooking or party planning. I was being valued for a skill I'd developed, not just for my willingness to serve others. The changes in my life accelerated. I started volunteering at the community center, teaching basic piano to other seniors who'd always wanted to learn. I joined a book club that met monthly at the library. I even signed up for a watercolor painting class on Thursday mornings. Each new activity felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd lost somewhere along the way. I wasn't just Rose the mother and grandmother anymore. I was Rose the musician, Rose the teacher, Rose the student, Rose the friend. But with each step toward independence, the tension with my children grew. They seemed to view my new interests as a personal rejection of them. She's going through some kind of phase. I overheard Sarah telling Michael on the phone one evening when they thought I was in the kitchen. It's like she's having a midlife crisis at 70. Maybe we should talk to her doctor, Michael replied. This behavior isn't normal for her. Their concern would have been touching if it hadn't been so misguided. They were worried about me because I was finally taking care of myself instead of exclusively taking care of them. The breaking point came in November. Michael called to discuss Thanksgiving plans. We're thinking of having it at your house again this year, he began. Jennifer's parents are coming, and your dining room is bigger than ours. I'm sorry, but I won't be available for hosting this year, I said. What do you mean you won't be available? It's Thanksgiving. Silver Harmonies is performing a benefit concert that afternoon for the food bank. I'm the accompanist. Can't someone else play piano? I made a commitment, Michael. People are counting on me. We're your family. We should come first. You've never come first, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Your convenience has always come first. Your needs have always come first. But I've never come first, not even to myself. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. I think you should talk to someone, Michael said finally. This isn't like you. You're right, I agreed. It's not like me. And I'm grateful for that every single day. The Thanksgiving concert was one of the most meaningful experiences of my life. We performed for over 200 people, raising money for families who couldn't afford holiday meals. The applause was thunderous, but what moved me most was the sense of purpose I felt. I was using my talents to help others, but I was doing it by choice, not obligation. I was contributing to my community as Rose the musician, not just Rose the unpaid family labor. That evening, I had a quiet dinner with Helen and 2 other friends from the choir. We laughed, shared stories, and talked about our plans for the new year. Nobody asked me to serve them or clean up after them or solve their problems. For the first time in decades, I spent Thanksgiving as a guest in my own life, rather than as the host of everyone else's expectations. My phone buzzed with messages throughout the evening, guilt-inducing texts from my children about the family dinner I'd missed, photos of a store-bought turkey that wasn't as good as Mom's, complaints about the dishes nobody wanted to wash. I read them all, felt a brief pang of the old guilt, and then set my phone aside to listen to Helen's story about her grandson's first attempts at violin. The difference was striking. Helen's family problems were shared as anecdotes, not deposited on my shoulders as responsibilities to solve. Later that night, as I prepared for bed, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. My face looked different somehow, calmer, more present. The constant low-level anxiety that had been my companion for years had begun to fade. I was learning to be selfish in the best possible way, selfish enough to nurture the parts of myself that made me who I was, rather than just what I could do for others. The woman looking back at me from the mirror was someone I was just beginning to meet, and I found myself looking forward to getting to know her better. December arrived with an unexpected phone call from Dennis. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was reviewing sheet music for our upcoming Christmas concert when his name appeared on my phone screen. Rose, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important, he began. Just piano practice, I said, and realized I no longer felt the need to apologize for it. Actually, that's sort of why I'm calling. Sarah mentioned your choir performances, and I was wondering, would it be possible for me and Jake to come hear you play sometime? His request caught me completely off guard. In all the months since I'd started with Silver Harmonies, none of my family members had expressed any interest in actually attending a performance. Our Christmas concert is next Friday at 7, I said carefully, at the community center. We'll be there, Dennis said. Jake's been asking about your piano playing ever since you started teaching Emma. I think he'd really enjoy it. After I hung up, I sat at my piano feeling oddly nervous. Having family in the audience would be different somehow. These performances had become my space, where I was valued for who I was rather than what I could provide. Would that change if my role as grandmother crept into the room? The week passed quickly. Emma's piano lessons had progressed beautifully. She was now working on a simplified version of Silent Night that she planned to play for her parents on Christmas morning. During our Sunday lesson, she surprised me with a question. Grandma Rose, why did you stop playing piano for so long? I paused, considering how to explain decades of self-neglect to an 8-year-old. I guess I forgot that it was important to me, I said finally. But how do you forget something that makes you happy? Her innocent question hit deeper than any criticism from my adult children. How do you forget what makes you happy? You forget by convincing yourself that everyone else's happiness matters more than your own. Sometimes adults get so busy taking care of other people that they stop taking care of themselves, I explained. Emma nodded seriously. Like how Mom gets so busy with work that she forgets to eat lunch? Something like that. I'm never going to forget about piano, Emma declared. Even when I'm old like you. I laughed, but her words stayed with me. She was right, I had been old not in years but in spirit. I'd aged myself into invisibility, into the background of my own life. The night of the Christmas concert, I arrived early to warm up. The community center was decorated with twinkling lights and garland, and the scent of hot cider drifted from the lobby where volunteers were setting up refreshments. Patricia found me at the piano, running through some challenging transitions in our arrangement of "Oh Holy Night." "You look nervous," she observed. "My family is coming tonight," I admitted. "My son-in-law and grandson." "That's wonderful. You should be proud to share this with them." "Should be." But instead, I felt vulnerable in a way I hadn't experienced since my first performance months ago. What if they saw this as just another example of my selfishness? What if Jake got bored and disruptive? What if Dennis thought the whole thing was a waste of time? The audience began filing in around 6:30. I spotted Dennis and Jake immediately. Dennis had dressed up in a button-down shirt and tie, and Jake was wearing his best sweater. They found seats in the third row, Jake bouncing excitedly and pointing out the piano to his father. As the concert began, something magical happened. The familiar comfort of the music washed over me, and I forgot about my worries. My fingers found the keys with confidence, supporting the voices of my choir friends as we moved through our repertoire of holiday classics. During Silent Night, I noticed Jake had stopped fidgeting. He was leaning forward in his seat, watching my hands with complete fascination. When we finished the song, he clapped enthusiastically, and I saw Dennis whisper something to him that made him grin. The concert concluded with "White Christmas," a song that allowed me a brief piano solo between verses. As my fingers danced across the keys, I felt the same sense of rightness I'd experienced that first night. This was who I was meant to be. Not invisible, not in the background, but present and skilled and valued. The applause was warm and sustained. After we took our bows, Jake came running up to the stage. "Grandma Rose, that was amazing. You played so many notes so fast, and they all sounded perfect." Dennis approached more slowly, his expression thoughtful. "Rose, I had no idea. You're incredibly talented. Thank you for coming," I said, genuinely touched. "It means a lot to have family here." "I feel terrible that we haven't been to any of your other performances," Dennis said. "Sarah and we've been so focused on our own schedules that we never thought about what you might be doing with your time." As we talked, other audience members approached to compliment the performance. I watched Dennis's face as person after person praised my playing, thanked me for the beautiful music, and expressed appreciation for my contribution to the community. "Mrs. Thompson, your accompaniment was absolutely gorgeous tonight," said an elderly woman I recognized from previous concerts. "You bring out the best in our voices." "Rose, you're the heart of this group," added Frank, one of the baritones. "We're so lucky to have found you." I saw something shift in Dennis's expression as he witnessed these interactions. For perhaps the first time, he was seeing me through other people's eyes, not as someone whose primary value was her availability, but as someone with genuine talent and worth. On the drive home, Dennis had insisted on following me to make sure I got safely back. Jake chattered nonstop about the music. "Dad, did you hear how Grandma Rose played that really fast part? And she didn't even have to look at her hands." "I heard," Dennis said. "She's very skilled. Can we come to her next concert too?" "Absolutely." 3 days later, Sarah called. Her voice was different, less rushed, more uncertain. "Dennis told me about your concert," she began. "He said you were incredible." "It was a nice evening," I said carefully. "Mom, I owe you an apology." Her words came in a rush. "I've been angry about your new schedule, but I think I was really angry about something else." I waited for her to continue. "When I was little, I remember you playing piano all the time. You used to practice after dinner while Dad watched TV. I would sit on the couch and listen, and it always made me feel peaceful. But then it just stopped. I never thought about why." I remembered those evenings too. The gradual complaints from her father about the noise, the suggestions that I practice when he wasn't home, the eventual silence as I chose family harmony over personal fulfillment. "Your father preferred quiet evenings," I said simply. "Dad preferred a lot of things that weren't good for you," Sarah said, her voice quiet. "And I think I've been doing the same thing, expecting you to make your life smaller so mine could be easier." The honesty in her voice broke something open in my chest. "Sarah." "No, let me finish." Dennis helped me see something. He said watching people appreciate your talent at the concert made him realize how much we've taken you for granted. Not just as a babysitter or a party planner, but as a person with your own gifts and dreams. Tears pricked my eyes. Thank you for saying that. I want to do better, Mom. I want Jake to grow up seeing his grandmother as someone who pursues her passions, not just someone who's always available to solve other people's problems. I'd like that too. The next Sunday, something unprecedented happened. Sarah and Dennis came for dinner, but instead of leaving immediately after we ate, they stayed to listen to Emma's piano lesson. Jake sat beside his cousin on the bench, watching her fingers move across the keys. Could you teach me too, Grandma Rose? He asked. Would you like to learn? Yeah. I want to play fast like you did at the concert. We'll start slow, I promised. But yes, I'd love to teach you. As I began showing Jake the basic hand position, I noticed Sarah watching with an expression I'd never seen before. It took me a moment to recognize it, respect. You really are a wonderful teacher, she said. I never realized how much patience and skill it takes. Later, as they were getting ready to leave, Sarah pulled me aside. Mom, I've been thinking about something. What would you say to teaching piano lessons here at the house? Real lessons with paying students. The suggestion startled me. I don't know if I'm qualified for that anymore. Dennis looked into it. You don't need special certification to teach private lessons. And Emma's progress in just a few months has been remarkable.